It's bacteria. They will take, if you ferment something really well, it's going to be a very safe vessel so that no pathogens can survive. That's why everyone says, can you get sick from fermented foods? Can you get food poisoning from it? And no, it's healthier than any food. It's healthier than a salad. It's healthier than your cooked broccoli. It's way healthier than that because it's got all the healthy bacteria in it. So yeah, I didn't really worry about safety so much. I just worried about doing the technique, doing the fermentation process right. And once you have that, then you don't really, in my perspective, you don't have to worry about safety so much. Just get the fermentation process right and the microbes will do it for you. But my company, Fermenting Fairy, is unique in more than two ways, but I would say two ways that really stand out to me. And one is that we do a wild fermentation process, and that is taking organically grown produce. So whatever vegetable or fruit you want to ferment, make sure it's grown in organic, regenerative, hopefully, soil, so that it already has the bacteria and the fungi and the yeast already in its cell walls and on its skin, because it's grown in the soil, and the soil has trillions and trillions of the microorganisms. So that when you take that head of cabbage, per se, and you want to make sauerkraut, a wild fermentation is taking that head of cabbage that's organically grown, creating a vessel that has no oxygen, so it's an anaerobic process, and letting the naturally occurring bacteria, yeast, fungi flourish, rather than, let's just say, a controlled fermentation versus wild fermentation. Controlled fermentation is someone who makes a sauerkraut, but they add in microbes. They add in a starter. They add in lactobacillus, or they add in bifidum. So they're taking a freeze-dried powder that's supposedly a microorganism and throwing it in and letting that kickstart the fermentation process, which to me is not as healthy. They're not real, they're laboratory-derived microorganisms rather than getting it straight from the soil. So that's what we do at Fermenting Fairy. All of my products are wild fermented. And then the other thing that makes us stand apart from other fermentation companies is that I've taken things that people are familiar with, like lemonade. Everyone knows lemonade. Most people love it. And applesauce. Who doesn't love applesauce, right? Sauerkraut, not so much. Kefir, not so much. But and then bread. Now I have a sourdough. But those things people can really relate to. And so people who are really turned off or really afraid to do fermented foods, they can start with an applesauce, or they can start with a lemonade and try it and say, that's not that bad. So maybe I'll take another step and go to the sauerkraut, or take another step and go to the kefir. So I would say my products are good for anyone and everyone because they're palatable, they're delicious, and they're also healthy. We have to remember that fermentation is an ancient practice of preserving food. And, a lot of people will say like, our ancestors just used it for preservation. They didn't use it for health purposes. But actually, I disagree with that. I think that they did. And I think that they knew somehow that vegetables and fruit have defense mechanisms that can, if eaten raw or even cooked, can be toxic to the human body. So what did our ancestors do? They fermented vegetables. They soaked, they sprouted grains. They didn't really eat anything that was raw except for raw meat. But they weren't eating veggies and fruit raw. So it's really an ancient practice of health and preservation. And that's what we've lost. Like, we've lost those medicinal ways of eating. Because again, we have to sterilize everything. We have to pasteurize everything. We have to boil everything. And it just kills the nutrients. It kills what the heart or the prana, the life force of the food.